Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about navigating the settings on Android devices. So if you have a Samsung or LG or Motorola smartphone, you have an Android device. And we're going to be talking about how to find and access the settings on these devices and how to navigate them and how to use the settings on your device to personalize it to your preferences. Now, today's webinar is proudly sponsored by Breezeline. Breezeline is the 8th largest cable provider in the US. Breezeline offers internet, TV, and voice services to residents and businesses in 12 states. Their business is getting people connected, much like we do here at Cyber Seniors. So before we get started, we're going to see a quick video from Breezeline.
Wi-Fi your way home, powered by Plume Home Pass. Technology that spreads ultra-fast Wi-Fi to every inch of your home. We make having a Wi-Fi supercharged home easy by including a SuperPod with your Wi-Fi gateway package. Learn more at breezeline.com.
All right, and if you want to find out more about what Breezeline offers, you can visit them online after this session at www.breezeline.com. All right, let's jump in.
All right, so we're going to be looking at our settings on an Android device. So I'm using an Android Lenovo tablet. Now, these settings might differ depending on if you're using an Android phone or tablet and what kind of hardware you're using. So like I said, I'm using Lenovo. These settings might differ slightly if you're using, say, a Samsung or an LG. The Android system is a Google-based operating system that is used by a lot of different types of phone and tablet companies. So they do have some changes, but the general settings should be the same. So just do be aware of that. So we're going to start off by going into our settings app, and this should look pretty much the same across most devices. So for me, it's this one in the bottom left corner here. It looks like a little gear icon, and that's our settings. So we'll just tap into here. So here we are in our settings, and generally this will appear as a sort of kind of list we have here. So we have a list of different areas of our settings. Now here at the top, I have what's known as my Lenovo ID, and so that may also say something like my Google account or Google ID or LG ID, depending on the type of device I have again. So that will differ depending from device to device. And that is just the account that we have our device registered under. Now, under this, the next section is network and internet. And when we click into this, this will be all of our settings that have to do with how we're connected to the internet. So either through Wi-Fi, as we can see at the very top, WLAN. I can click into here and I can turn on or off my Wi-Fi signal, and I can select a network that I might want to use and connect to. We also have Ethernet, so we can plug in our device to an Ethernet cable that plugs into the wall internet. We also have airplane mode, which pretty much turns off our connections, both outgoing and incoming connections. And we use this generally when we're on an airplane and we are told to turn off our cellular data and all of that. So we can just turn that off, and it's a wash. It will turn off all of those connections. We then have hotspot and tethering, which if we have a data plan, basically we can turn our device into a mobile router, internet router, so we can connect other devices to it, which can be a helpful tool at times. And then we may have other things like VPN, which stands for Virtual Private Network, which is basically a way of protecting our internet connection by encrypting the connection when we're connecting to things like public Wi-Fi networks, which can be important. So we can set up a VPN on here and control it from here as well. But this is basically all of our internet settings, the main one being that first one, WLAN, which allows us to connect to Wi-Fi. Now, going down from here, I have a section called Connected Devices, and this is going to allow me to connect devices through things like Bluetooth. So I might want to pair a pair of headphones or a speaker. So if I want to do this from here, I can just click Pair New Device, and it's going to start to look for devices that are near, and then I can connect to through, say, Bluetooth or other connection methods. And I can select one of these and try to connect with them. Say I want to play some music over a speaker or something. That is all in this area here. As we move further down, we get into more of our general settings. So we have this next section called display, and display will, have everything to do with how things look on our device. So from things like brightness level, where we can come and adjust how bright or dark our screen is, to things like eye protection mode, which allows us to change the intensity of our screen color from, more warm to bluer hues to protect our eyes. And we can turn this on or off. This is a great setting if you find that your eyes get strained from looking at your screen for too long, and something I would recommend checking out. Maybe also it has dark theme. So right now we're in what's called a light theme. If I turn on dark theme, you'll see it makes my screen go dark. So again, another thing that we might want to use in different lighting. So say it's night, we may want to put on dark theme to give our eyes a bit of a break. From here, we also have our system navigation preferences. So right now I have these 3 buttons at the bottom for my 3-button navigation, my back button, my home button, which is the circle down there, and the other square button. But I can change this to a gesture navigation, which will remove those bottom buttons. And now I use gestures, swiping gestures, rather than the buttons to, go to my home screen or go back. I like the 3-button navigation, but this is something that I'm able to change right from here in this menu, and those buttons should reappear. Next, we have color mode. So changing things from standard to bright, or to warm to cold. We can basically change the kind of tone of our screen color to our likings. Again, whatever looks best to us. It also feels easiest on our eyes. Next in here, we have wallpaper, which allows us to change our background. Now from here, we should be able to access our gallery, which is any of the photos that we have taken on our device. So maybe photos we've taken with our camera. We also should have some default wallpapers provided by the device itself, and we can choose from those. We can also go into photos and select, say, one of these 2 that we may have here. So say I select this one, I can make that my wallpaper if I like. So we can change your background there. We'll see. Now I have a different background here. Now different settings here too. Tap to wake, meaning if I just tap on my screen when it's dark, it will turn it on. I can start using it. Lift to wake, which means if I lift my device off a table, the screen will come on automatically. Things like that. We also have indicator light, which can be used. It's like a flashing light on my hardware. This may not exist on your device. That flashes when I have a notification or when something's charging or anything like that. Another important section here is screen timeout. And this basically is the amount of time it takes for my screen to go black after inactivity. So I'm not touching my device. Generally, this is set to about 30 seconds or a minute. So if you're finding that your device screen is going off too soon, and you need it on for longer, you can adjust this. I wouldn't suggest using never because you may end up draining your battery a lot quicker, not turning your screen off properly. So at most, maybe 5 minutes is what you want to set it on. Maybe you need to put it on never if you're doing a specific task that requires you to keep your screen on for a long period of time without touching it. But just you can adjust that here. We also have auto rotate screen. So auto rotate screen when it's on means that when I hold my device on the long edge versus the short edge, the screen switches to be oriented in that way. If it's off, it will stay locked regardless of how I have my device positioned. Next, we have font size. And here we can change the size of our general font from small to large. And, we may want to have it on large so we can read things easier on our screen. And then we can, on mine, select a screensaver if we'd like. Not all devices use a screensaver, but we can have one here. And then we have lock screen settings. So when our screen is locked under a passcode, do we see notifications? Do we not see notifications? Do we see messages we've come through? And we can specify what's available to view from that lock screen before the device is unlocked. So that's basically everything that's in display. Next, we'll look at sound. So within the sound section, we can change the volumes. First of all, change the media volumes. That's any videos or audio that we're listening to. We can change the volume of alarms. So if we set an alarm, we can change how loud that will be. And we can change notification volumes, so dings from emails or messages that might come through on our device. And we change these just by putting our finger on these blue dots that are on the lines and swiping from left to right to adjust those volumes. And we can swipe them, and it will play a bit of it as we do it so we can see how loud that actually is. If we go down further in this section, we can access settings like our do not disturb settings, turn them on or off. This basically means that we can turn off general notifications as a whole at certain times so that we're not being interrupted. Oftentimes we may turn this on when we're in a movie or maybe at night when we're sleeping and we don't want loud alarms going off from people messaging us or calling us. And we can adjust any of those settings from here, turn them on and choose which applications, people maybe are exceptions to this rule. So say if I turn this on, it's on do not disturb, but maybe there's a certain person that I want to have an exception for this rule. So maybe I don't want messages to come through, but I'll say that calls from any contacts can come through. So we'll take contacts, and now even if my phone or tablet is on do not disturb, some people can interrupt me or basically get through that do not disturb with a phone call. And we can change other things about our do not disturb settings in here. Now we can go into media, and this is about just a setting for hiding the player when media session has ended. So yeah, you can turn that on or off, that setting. We also can do things about creating, our default notification sound. If it's on vibrate, so if I click on default notification sound, I can change what sound is used as the notification sound. Same with alarm sound. And then we have the section called other sounds and vibrations. So turning on and off the screen locking sound, so that little click you hear when you lock your screen. The charging sound and vibration when you plug in your device to a charging. You can also turn on touch sounds, so that when you're tapping or typing on a keyboard, it will kind of make a fake clicking sound as if you were touching real buttons. And then touch vibrations, which vibrate when you're doing certain things and give you vibration feedback so you can feel that you've touched something. So those are those sound settings. Next, we'll get into privacy. Now, privacy basically deals with permissions mostly from different apps and accounts on our device. So first of all, accessibility usage, we can go into here. So accessibility usage is just our accessibility settings, which allow us to make our device more usable. And this has full access to all of my device settings. So it can go in and make any changes it needs to basically make my accessibility settings work with my device. Now, this is something I want to keep on because if I want to use those services there. So we'll leave that there. But the next thing down is permission manager. So permissions on any of our devices basically mean any of the functions, the built-in functions of our device, and what apps or programs have access to them. So for example, in here, this might mean our calendar, our camera, our contacts, our files and media, our location. So what we can do from here is control these permissions. So say I go into my camera here. what I'll be able to see is all of the apps that have allowances for accessing or using my camera. So no apps are allowed to use it all the time. I have a handful of apps that are allowed to use it while in use, and these are mostly apps that use it for video calling. So Google Meet, Zoom. I also have my camera, which makes sense. But then I have a ton that are denied, and I can come in here and change these permissions as I like or need to. So say I no longer want Google Meet to have permission to access my camera, I can just click on it and I can change it to ask every time or deny, whichever I prefer. And I just click it and that changes the setting there. So you can come through and check all your permissions, and it's important to look here and see, are there any permissions, say, in my locations that I don't feel like they need to have that access that I want to remove, or ones, say I'm on Zoom and my camera's not working, can I go in and change that permission and get it to work again? So an important area to know about there. So other things that are included in this privacy section also might include the setting of showing the password that I'm typing in when I'm typing it in. So when you type in a password, you get those little dots to cover it up. This will not have those dots. It will show you what you're typing as you're typing. So you may want or not want that depending on, if you have people looking over your shoulders. Things like notifications on lock screen. So what you see, so say someone sends you a message and you get a notification, does it show that you just got a message, or does it show what that message says in its entirety? Things like that. And then things like autofill services, so filling in passwords, credit cards, and addresses, automatically saving that information to your device. We get into Google location history, so it says where you go with your device. That is a feature of Google you may want to look into, and stuff like that. So different privacy settings in here. Next, we're going to go into location, which basically goes more into our location services. Again, what apps may have access to or permission to access our location. And then just to see how we use these locations, so we can see if any apps have requested to our location recently from it. Might be a warning sign that that app is a bit malicious if one is continually asking for a location and continually being denied. And we can also see emergency location services. So if it's supported in your area, text or emergency messages being sent to you in response to emergencies, stuff like that. So we can change all of these location services settings within here. And then we get into security. So security is going to be things like our any sort of antivirus or security status or updates we have on here, so we can see it protected through Google Play Protect. My security is updated. I have Find My Device turned on, which allows me to find my device if it's lost, stuff like that. But then we have the actual device, so hardware security, things like screen lock and smart lock. If I have, a lock screen message. So things like screen lock, if I go into here, allows me to set up things like a passcode, PIN, or pattern in order to lock my device. Right now I don't have one on, but I could set my password or PIN to something by clicking here and selecting a PIN I want to use. So these are all of these services that allow us just to protect our device, setting up protocols for that. Next section we get into, we have digital well-being and parental controls. So if you are interested in wanting to set up any sort of controls about, what apps can be used for what amount of time, this might have stuff like screen time that shows you how much you use certain apps. You can also set up parental controls from here if you happen to be using your device and maybe a younger person in your life happens to be using that same device. And then we have a really important section called accessibility. And this has all of these settings which we can use to, modify our device to make it easier. Say if we have vision or hearing issues, we can come back here and change these settings to help make our device more accessible. So this accessibility menu is pretty much broken down into a couple of sections. So downloaded apps, screen readers, you can see the top display, interaction controls, audio and on-screen text, and experimental. Now in this downloaded app sections, the first thing we have is accessibility menu, which is basically a shortcut we can set up on our navigation bar at the bottom. You can see mine's already turned on, so this is blue. And that's just this little figure you see in the bottom right corner with its arms outstretched. This is my accessibility shortcut menu. So basically it gives me access to things, that I might have to get through like a swipe down or using different buttons. So I can just directly click on my screen to access these sort of functionalities. Now, the next thing we have in here is select to speak. So basically, if I turn this on, I can turn it on. Hello. What this will allow me to do is then go to my accessibility menu, and then what I can do is I can then turn it on, and then I can select portions of my screen for it to read. So it will read certain things on my screen. So if you have trouble seeing things and need things to be read out loud, this is a great option for that. We're going to skip some of these as they're not necessarily as helpful. We're going to go back to TalkBack. So TalkBack is a functionality that basically allows you to provide spoken feedback so you can use your device without looking at your screen. So when this is turned on, basically what I should be able to do is it's like a whole setup process.
On. Welcome to close tutorial. Close button. Double tap to activate.
So that's
back button. Accessibility. Settings. Search. Accessibility. Back button. Talk back. Use. Stop button. Talk back off.
So basically that means like everything I touch, it reads out loud to me. So it can be quite disruptive. So unless you have, I guess more severe vision loss, this is not a setting you necessarily want to turn on because it's very intensive in terms of you have to click everything twice. Everything you touch gets read aloud, as you just saw. So it's a great setting for, more severe vision impairment. But for just light vision impairment, this is not probably the thing for you, but definitely a thing that makes this device more accessible to more people, which is great. Now, continuing down, we have the screen reader. So this is text-to-speech output. And this is basically anytime things on my screen are being read. So with those other settings we were just looking at, this allows me to change the speech rate, the pitch, and the type of voice that's reading things that I'm saying.
This is an example of speech synthesis in English.
So we can change the pitch.
This is an example of speech synthesis in English.
That's a bit high for me, but we can change these things basically to make it more to our liking. Now going back out, we next have display, which is all the things that allow us to do things like make our font sizes larger and change things about our display. So first of all, we have font size, right? We can adjust that here with this little toggle down at the bottom. Then we have display size. So this is general things on our screens, things like buttons and other stuff. So we can change this as well to make things bigger on our screen. You can see how it kind of adjusts our screen generally when we do that. So back out. Then we have dark theme, which does kind of what you think it does. It turns your screen onto a darker color versus lighter colors. And this can be good for eye strain. Next, we have magnification, which when you turn this on, basically you can use a shortcut to tap on the screen and zoom in and out on really any screen. Usually with zoom in and out, you can only zoom in and out on certain pages and maybe photos. But when this is on, you can always consistently zoom in and out on things on your screen, regardless of where you are on your device. Color correction. Now, color correction is for those with color blindness. So you can use color correction and basically set different types of color correction. So red, green, blue, yellow, And this allows you to see things better if you experience color blindness. So this is a great setting as well for vision. And then even further down, a larger mouse or mouse pointer. This is only relevant if you're using like a plug-in mouse on this device. So usually it's not that relevant. Remove animations can be helpful because basically what it does is it removes, say I were to click into this display, rather than the kind of normal swiping and like appearing from like thin air kind of animation it usually does when I click into different areas of my device. It's just very stark. So it's to remove that sort of animation. Then we get into interaction controls. So this is, how our device basically reacts to certain motions and touches. So auto click dwell timing. Auto click means it works when you're using a mouse. So again, it's not really relevant if you're not, but basically this changes the amount of time when your cursor, So basically you can set your mouse cursor to click when it's been held still for a certain amount of time. So say I hold it over an item for 1 second. After 1 second, when it's not moving, it clicks it. So if you can't basically do a clicking motion. Auto rotate screen. This is a setting for if I were to move my device from its long side to its short side, would the screen automatically rotate on its side to show me a different view. So like this. And I was just moving my screen from side to side there. Turn that off though. Touch and hold delay. So this is when you have to touch and hold something to get it to do something. So say when you're editing your home screen to move or delete apps, how long you need to hold down in order to activate that, right? You may want this to be longer if you are a bit slower in tapping. So you find yourself when you're tapping on things that it's like doing something weird, like bringing up a random menu that you didn't want to when you really just wanted to click into an app. That's for that. So you can make that longer so you don't have that issue. And time to take action. So accessibility timeout. So basically this is when like messages pop up on your screen or notifications, how long those things will stay as a pop-up on your screen before they go away. So if you're finding that you're getting notifications and you want to click on them, but they go away before you have a chance to click on them, you could extend the time that this takes. Vibration and haptic strength. So this is just how strong the vibrations and different vibrations are for certain notifications. So ring vibration, notification vibration, and touch feedback. So how much your device vibrates for certain actions. If you don't like how much it's vibrating, you can adjust that. And then we have system navigation. So whether we have on or off this navigation bar at the bottom, we can change if we use that or use swiping motions instead. And then down to audio and on-screen text. So turning on or off mono audio or changing the audio balance using this little bar here to move it from right to left. This is helpful if you have hearing loss in one ear or the other. If you turn on mono audio, it basically means that you're not getting any sounds coming out of only one side of the speakers or not. This is especially relevant when you're using headphones. And audio balance as well, you can just move the balance to one side or the other depending on which ear has the better hearing and which ear may be weaker, or vice versa, right? And then we have something called caption preferences. So basically we can turn this on, show captions, and we turn this on, any app or media that has supported captions will just automatically be turned on for us, so we don't have to find the button in that specific place. Not all apps support this function, but when they do, it will be used. And then lastly, experimental. These are just, I guess, new additions or things that, they're trying out. So things like high contrast text. So you can see when I have this on or off, it just makes the text a bit darker or more contrasty, so it's easier for me to decipher it. And then shortcuts from lock screen. So these are things like having different shortcuts you can access to access different items on your device from the screen when it's locked versus not having that ability. So that's accessibility pretty much. There's a lot there and a lot to check out. You can go in and you can read about what each setting does. And depending on device to device, some of these may vary. So definitely check that out. But those are generally some of the normal ones we have going on in there. Now, as we go further down, we have accounts. So we have our Google account that's associated with the device we're on. We can add accounts, we can delete them. These are the accounts that are associated with our Google Play Store and probably our email on here. So that's where you'll just see that and you can make changes to that. Next, we have our Google services and preferences. So this is all the stuff to do with our preferences on our Google account, things like autofills and backups and device and sharing. So this is more to do with your Google account than it is your specific device. And you can manage your Google account from here. And then we get into apps and notifications. So as the name suggests, this section deals entirely with our notifications and then individual app settings. So we can see any sort of like recently opened apps at the top, and then there's a button that allows us to see all 54 apps. And basically, this just gives us a list of all of our apps. There's some basic information listed here, mainly just the size of the app and all of the data saved on it. But for any given app, we can click into it. So say I click into camera here. And it will give us individual settings for each app. So we can open it, we can disable it, we can force stop this app, which just means close it out. We can see how many notifications we get on average per week. From here, we can manage the permissions of any given app. So I can go in here and find that. Any sort of storage that's saved on here. If I wanted to see how much storage or clear the storage on any given app, I could do that. This might be helpful when an app is glitchy or acting up. Clearing that cache can be a really helpful technique. Then we can also look at things like screen time, so how often we're using it, battery, so how much percentage of our battery that app uses or has used since our last charge, and other kind of app defaults. So it's a great way to manage specific apps and all the different settings that may have to do with it. And you'll see that there's certain controls here that we could access from other areas, but we're just accessing them more specifically for a specific app from here. So we can go back out of here and we can basically look at that for all the different apps. Now, some of the options for each different app might be different depending on kind of what type of app it is. So beyond being able to see all of our apps, we can also open up conversations, which just shows any conversations we have. I don't have any right now. We can go to notifications, and this just will allow us to change our general device notification options. So how do we see notifications? Do they pop up on the screen? Do they make a noise? All those sorts of things from here. Then we have screen time. This just shows us our overall screen time. It will also then kind of give us a breakdown of per app, how much we're using them. So we can just see how much usage we're getting out of our device. And we can, set timers for apps as well. So I can say, I only want to use, the internet app for 15 minutes a day. And then I want a timer to go off to let me know, hey, stop using this app. So you can set timers as well. Then we have default apps, and really this is just for a few different things. So our browser app, so that's if we click on some sort of internet link, what app is used to open that. We may have a different browser downloaded on our device. The native browser to our device is Chrome. And so if we downloaded something different, we could change this, but right now we have it set to Chrome, and that works for us. And same with a digital assistant app. Google Assistant Go is the built-in one. And then our home app is a Lenovo launcher. I wouldn't really change the digital assistant app or the home app, but you can change the browser app if you download a different one that is more suitable to you. And then we also have, if we go down permission manager, so again, we've seen this before within specific apps that we were looking at, but we can also from here, once again, look at this from a view of the specific functionalities that we might need to give permission for, so calendar or camera. So that just appears once again there. And then we have special app access. And this is for things that might need special access for battery optimization, do not disturb, maybe sort of adaptive features of this. So we can, click through here and see what sort of apps have some sort of special access to specific things. And generally, these are going to be apps that came with the device, so built-in apps, and they're kind of here for the just general functionality of our device system. So again, we don't really need to touch that special app access center, but it is there. And then next we can go into storage. Again, this just shows us how much storage we have. So we can see at the top here, I have used 13.45 gigabytes of my storage of 32. You can see it's at 42% used there. And then I can see how much of kind of general apps are using these. So I can click into say photos and videos, and I can see where that is coming from, which apps are taking up the most storage here. And you can also click manage storage, which basically allows you to go through and clean out junk files and, manage unused apps. So we'll have, a lot of information. So it will show me, look, there's duplicate files you have, or these apps you never seem to use. So maybe delete these underused apps that you have on here that are just taking up space. So it's a great way to manage your storage if you find that you're slow on storage. And then we have battery. This just tells you a bit about your battery. So right now I have 100% battery, I'm charging it. We can turn on settings like battery saver or battery protected mode, which just means if I'm connected to a power supply for a long time, it will just tell me so I can unplug it, because you don't want to leave your device plugged in too long. It can overheat the battery and actually lower the life expectancy of that battery. So you want to be careful with that. But we also have other things like, do I just show the battery percentage? So just all of this data about our battery life and how it's running, if it's running normally and everything. All right, and the last section we're going to be looking at is our system section. So our system section has kind of a mishmash of random stuff. So first of all, we have a section called About Tablet. If you click into this, it just shows you the device name, the model and hardware type, the version of Android we have downloaded on here, stuff like that. So a bunch of different information just on our individual device. Next, we have language and input. So here we can change the languages we have set on our device. I just have English. We can change this or add additional languages that we might want to use or have access to when we're like writing messages and stuff on this device. We also have options about our on-screen keyboard. So we have the Gboard, which allows for multilingual typing. We also have Google Voice typing. And then I guess we can manage on-screen keyboards if we have some sort of third-party version of that. But the ones we have here pretty much do the job. And then a physical keyboard. So we can technically connect a Bluetooth physical keyboard to this device if we want to use one. And we can connect it and kind of make our changes or preferences from here. And then we have tools, so spell checker. So do we want spell checker on or off when we are typing on this device, writing emails and messages? It's on for me. We can also come here and use different system languages to check our spelling. Autofill services. This is just any sort of account information like usernames or passwords that happen to be saved to our Google account. We can change our settings surrounding when this is used and all of that. So you click into it. It would take you to your Google account, so it would take you out of the settings area, but you can access and edit that directly from here. Personal dictionary. So you can basically add words, maybe words or names that are not, maybe in the dictionary that you like to use often and you're sick of them getting auto-corrected to whatever's in the actual dictionary. You can add your own words. So, or like, again, a name, maybe it's like uncommon spelling of a name and it keeps auto-correcting. You can add this here so it doesn't keep happening. So when you type in that word correctly for yourself, it keeps it that way rather than correcting it to something else that you don't want it to. Then we have pointer speed. This just changes the speed of our pointer if we're using generally an external mouse. It's not really relevant when we're just using the touch screen, but we can change the speed. And then text-to-speech output. We've seen this before in our accessibility settings and I think elsewhere, but it's just here again. So changing the speech rate and pitch of any voices that are used to read text on our screen out loud. So that's language and input here in system. Then we have gestures. So what kind of gestures we can do, specialized gestures to do actions like quickly open the camera or prevent ringing. Those are the really two options we have there. We have date and time, so we can change the date and time on our device if we'd like. I wouldn't suggest doing this because it can kind of mess with things. So usually just set it to the local default and that's fine, but you can change it here if you'd like. And you can use a 24-hour format if you prefer that. You can schedule power on and off. So, you can say, I want my device to turn off every night at 11 p.m. So that you're not having to physically turn it on or off. It does it for you. So that could be a nice feature if you tend to let your device sit overnight and then the battery dies because you haven't turned it off. Backup. So this is what data and information from your device will back up to your Google account, your Google One account that you automatically have when you have a Google account at all, and all your backup details, when it backs up, to manage the storage, and then you can do just an automated backup right now, or manual backup right now and update it. But it usually updates on its own pretty frequently, as long as you're connected to the internet. Reset options. So this is just if you have to reset your device. If you're no longer using your device, say you're giving it away, before you do so, you're going to want to come here and erase all data before you hand it off to someone else because you do not want them to have any access. It's not really enough just to delete an account from any specific app. You'll want to come here and erase all data. And then multiple users. So you can turn on the addition of multiple users on this device. So basically multiple logins. This is off for me right now, but you can share this with another person so that they can have their own personalized, kind of customized home screen and accounts and apps. So this can be used with multiple people. The only downside of this is that because it's going to be personalized for two people, it may take up twice the amount of storage. There's going to be an added storage factor to this. So if you don't have a huge amount of storage, I wouldn't suggest this, but you can set up multiple users on one device. And then really the last section here, we won't go into the last one, but system updates. This is where you can check if there are system updates. When you click here, it will show if you have the latest system version, which I do, or if you have new updates. You can always click for updates. And if there's an update, it will ask you if you'd like to download and install it, and you can do that from here. And this is really important to check every once in a while because you need to keep your device up to date in order to keep it safe and secure. So make sure that you're aware of where this is on your device and that you check it out every once in a while to make sure your system's up to date. All right. Well, that's pretty much it for your settings. The last thing I'll mention once again is that you have this little search feature in the top right corner of your screen here, right? It should be somewhere on the top. Mine's there. It might just be a bar across the top. Use that. That is how you can search through your settings. If you're not sure where to find something, you can always use this search feature. Say you don't know where to find how to get your updates. You can simply just search updates and there it comes up, system updates. I can just click on that, right? So it makes it really easy to access different parts of my device settings. So that is your friend, might make navigating this whole long area a bit simpler for you.
Now that is really it for your settings on your Windows. As I said, there's other things to look at, other things to explore. But there's so many settings on our computer, we couldn't possibly go through all of them. But hopefully that gives you a good idea of what's available to you on there and helps you navigate it a bit better. Now, if you have any questions about this topic, you can always call us at Cyber Seniors toll free at 844-217-3057, or you can visit us online at www.cyberseniors.org. And once again, this webinar was proudly sponsored by BreezeLine.